we're just gonna give it a minute, let everyone get into the webinar here. Hope everyone is well. What is today? Thursday, Friday Eve, as you will. Glad to see you. Just watching everyone pour in. While everyone is coming in, I I always ask the same kind of questions. I always want to know, where are you all from? Like, I'd like to get an idea of where you're from, and at the same time, if you could put in the chat where you're from. Is your child like class of 2026, class of 27, 20? This will help me gauge like how much I want to talk about different years, if you will, and what I should maybe put some emphasis on. That'd be great. Awesome, awesome.
Got some joy.
Great, pouring in. Excellent, excellent. And as you guys are doing this, and obviously I said this in the put this all in the chat, which is great. Some basic house cleaning, rules, if you will. This webinar will be recorded, and you will receive an email tomorrow probably with a link to the webinar. So if no need to ask like, is it being recorded? Yes, it is. Also, if you have any questions, we love questions. Put it in the Q&A. Not put the questions in the Q&A, not the chat, mainly because honestly I get overwhelmed and I'll lose it in the in the chat. So the Q&A helps us keep it organized. And second, I'll say if you have questions, if you have specific questions, go ahead and try asking us. But if it gets into too much details, or if we need more details, just remember we probably won't have time to get like, let's put it this way, we can't give you a diagnosis, but we'll give you the general direction and all of that. So, but yeah, I think we got. Oh wow, we got more joining us. Yeah, okay, but yeah, thank you so much for sharing where everybody's at. It seems like we got kind of everyone all over. Definitely, class of 2026 is heavily represented, so I'll try to spend a little more time on that and answer. If you have questions, like I said, put that in the Q&A, and I'll answer those questions. And so just make sure everyone knows who we are. Like if this is your first time doing a webinar with College Aid Pro, can you just like give a raise your hand, or thumbs up, or some sort of emotion there? Any of those reactions. I just like to also just curious if anybody's new. Okay, we're getting lots of thumbs up. Okay, so newbies. So in case this is really more for the newbies, again, welcome. And just to give you a quick highlight of who College Aid Pro is, I like to say we're on a mission, and as you can say here, it's to end that student debt crisis, and we do that by empowering families on how to be smarter shoppers for college. And I also like to take it a step further and think we are here to try to transform the way you even think or plan about college. College is a $1 trillion industry. Higher education, is a $1 trillion industry, and they spend millions on marketing. And I'm someone who worked in higher education for 18 years, so I kind of know all the dark secrets behind the scenes. And yeah, so we want to really try to just transform, lift the veil, if you will, and help you kind of see behind the scenes, if you will, see like how to just really be smarter when it comes to this whole planning for college. So with that, I just want to take a moment and introduce our co-presenters. Jason, you want to say hi real quick?
Yeah, hey everybody, my name is Jason Sloan, and my background is also in higher ed like JP. I've been a college professor since 2002, and I was university dean for 7 of those years. So my joke, to JP's point, my joke is I'm the former dean that spills the beans.
I love that.
But more importantly, I'm a parent of 3. I got 2 in college right now, one about to be a senior and one about to be a sophomore, so I feel your pain.
You emphasize, you have the real, quote unquote, real education and education of hard knocks. Yeah, that's awesome.
You got it exactly.
Awesome.
So yeah, been doing also been a financial advisor actually since 2008. So been doing college financial aid planning since 2019 now. So
love that.
Love College Aid Pro. Great mission, great team.
Yes, agreed. And then Mr. Murphy, Kevin, you want to say hello?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm one of the college planning experts here at College Aid Pro, and I do not have a background in higher education. So unfortunately, I'm not the former dean who spills the beans. But I am very fortunate to have done this hundreds, if not over 1,000 times with families. So I honestly think that that's how I know this process inside and out. But yeah, that's that's it.
Awesome, awesome. And I'm JP, but my joke always is I'm the Santa Claus of college planning, and I used to say it's just because of the beard, but turns out when you turn 50, I get fat. So I'm looking more like Santa Claus than just the beard. But yeah, I worked in higher education 18 years. Started off in the financial aid office. I was the director of financial aid at USC, the West Coast USC. And then I worked, ironically, Jason, I worked in the dean's office for a while too, and supported the dean and faculty affairs and other stuff. And then I ended my time as an adjunct professor. So, but yeah, I spent a considerable amount of time, and ultimately, I mean, there was multiple reasons why I left, but one of them was really my reach was limited to just the students that were trying to come to USC, and I wanted to have a bigger platform, if you will, to try to reach more people all over the country, to be like, guys, stop making the same mistakes year after year after year after year, and because that's what happens. The counseling advice you get at high school level is the same kind of year after year, and we need to be smarter than that. So, and College A Pro has just been an amazing platform for all of us professionals in this industry to collaborate together and give us this platform to really try to raise awareness. And so we are just so thrilled to be part of the the College A Pro team, if you will. So anyway, let's go on and talk about a few things tonight. Um, I'm going to focus on kind of like, basically what, more or less, what should you be doing this summer? Okay. And prepare you for this college process, if you will. So this is what I like to call, kind of think of like, depending on where you are in high school, if you're a parent of like a freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, um, you know, there's this maze that we're navigating to get to college in the end. And there's all sorts of things that you got to be dealing with and thinking about. And for me, the top priorities are always, trying to find the schools that are an academic fit. The simple things like, if I want to major in business, I should probably go to a school that offers that major. Like, I to me that seems pretty basic, and should be kind of like a no duh. But you'd be surprised how many families I talked to where that never entered their thought. Where they said, uh, for where I live, where they go, I want my kid to go to UCLA, and I'm like, that's a great school. I'm like, what do they want to major? And they're like, oh, they're going to study business. I'm like, well, then no, we can't go to UCLA. Well, no, they got to go to UCLA. Well, then they can't study business. Well, no, they got to study business. And it's a circle. I'm like, UCLA doesn't offer that as a major. So one of these two things has to give. So, and they're like, oh, never thought about that. So the idea is, we want to find schools that are an academic fit, right? But then the thing that, honestly, I have yet to really meet families who proactively do this next step, and that is finding the schools that are a financial fit. And that's just simply, can we afford it? Like, what's our budget? Can we afford it? Is this a good ROI? For example, if your child wants to go into a certain career, and let's say the salary is 80,000 a year, if you go to college A and spend 400,000 for that degree, for that $80,000 job, that's not really a good ROI. That's pretty bad, or ROI, to be honest. Or we could go to school B and spend, I don't know, 200,000 for that $80,000 career. That's a better ROI, at least. So, like, wouldn't you want to know that? Like, wouldn't you want to know, like, hey, I can help my child set them up for success for less and make it a better ROI on my money and our time and all that. So, just want to think about the financial fit of the schools. And then of course, the students think about the person, what I call personal fit, the I wants. Like, I want to be at a big school. I want to be at a school with a great football team, or I want to be at a school that's a closed campus. I want to be close to mom and dad, or in my case, I want to be as far away from mom and dad, whatever, right? The I wants. But then, the students ultimately got to figure out, like, what's their final list of schools that they're going to apply to. And, for me, I always try to get my students to narrow it down to like their top 10. Some of my best students have gotten it down to like 5, 6 schools. you know, if maybe up as 12 is fine. Once you get over that, I start getting nervous, going, maybe we didn't really fine tune the list that well. Maybe they don't know what they want, or they don't know what the schools offer, or they haven't thought about how many supplemental essays they might be writing. So, I always say try to get it around to, like the top 10. And yes, I'm influenced by David Letterman, but, top 10 list, right? But once they get that school list narrowed down, then they got to think about what is their admission strategy for each of those schools, right? And was it Kevin? Was it last week or 2 weeks ago? You and I did a webinar that really just dove into the details of like my personal strategies on how to improve their admissions chances and scholarship, winning scholarships. I think that was like a couple weeks ago, wasn't it?
Wasn't that like almost a month ago? Maybe I
Oh,
think
well,
it was the end of May. It was the end of May.
okay, yeah, but so
Yeah,
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 a little maybe
yeah,
2 weeks ago. I
yeah.
mean, we have so much fun, time flies. But
I know.
the so and admittedly, when we did that webinar, I had so many emails and messages from families who were like, we've hired an IEC, we go to a private school where they have a great college counseling program, and a lot of families were like, what you explained made so much sense, but no one has ever told us this is what we should be doing, and they're just blown away. So and then there's follow-up questions like, well, what should we have been doing and when? So that's kind of what's creating tonight's webinar is it's honestly influenced by what we talked about a few weeks ago. And so I want to just kind of share like what I have my kids doing every year, and think of like this summer as like kind of the check mark, like where are we in the process. So so hopefully that all makes sense. Let's go on to the next slide. So this is honestly, if you were at our webinar a couple weeks ago, this is a quick recap. So I talked about this the admission strategy, which is the same as winning scholarships from the schools. The strategy to really make an impressive mark on admissions is I break it up into like a defensive strategy and an offensive strategy. And the simplest way I'm going to say it is your defensive strategy is your academics. Have a good GPA, academic rigor, good test scores. You want to ideally be above the 25th percentile of the incoming freshman class for whatever school you're applying to, right? That's the easy data that's trackable. It's hard data. And this is what schools, if your high school uses like Naviance or Score or Maya Learning, like this is the data that they have. You could also pull this data up from common data set of any school. This is easy data to track, and you can easily compare your child's hard data against that school's hard data. But you got to pay attention also to the offensive strategy, and this is more difficult because it is, let's call it soft data. You know, we talk about knowing your personal brand for the student. Like they need to know their personal brand. Admittedly, I'm old enough that I don't like that term. It's a bit marketing for me. But back in my day, we used to call that just simply know your genuine, authentic self and be able to explain to other people who you are, right? And so that takes though some reflection to do that. There's a variety of assessments that I have my students go through to really help them hone who they are. What is their genuine, authentic self. Then you want to build what I'm going to call strategic extracurricular activities around that. And then depending on the schools, some schools you need to have what we call fit to major extracurricular activities is another way to think about it. So especially let's say some of the Texas schools, if you wanted to, let's say, major in business, if your extracurricular activities are like the standard, like I was in band and I was in sports and it was whatever, that it's not going to help. You would want what they call fit to major, so like business related extracurricular activities. So you want to again think about what is going to be a strategic extracurricular activity. The essay part, this is just being able to, can you tell your story? Can you convey your story, right? And be able to do that well. So what I always tell my students is we need to think about what is the theme to your application. And like maybe you want to espouse certain values and say, this is who I am. And you want that theme to be kind of shown throughout that application from the extracurricular activities, but also the obvious spot is your essay, your personal statement, and you want to whatever topic you pick. The Common App gives you 7 prompts, so you can pick any of those prompts, any of those topics. It doesn't matter. but you want to pick the one that allows you to talk about your theme, whatever value or whatever it is you want to espouse and get across to admissions. And you want to tell that in your personal statement. This bleeds over also to the letters of recommendation. My example I'll give you is if if the value that you're trying to portray is, let's say, persistency and grit, and that can do attitude, I'll persevere. Um, you don't then ask the teacher who you got the easy A in for a letter of recommendation, because they're not going to be able to write a letter of recommendation that speaks to that value. You want to ask the teacher who you did struggle with and who you went in for extra office hours and you put in that extra effort and they saw that and they can talk about that in the letter of rec. So you want someone who's going to be able to, a teacher to, or counselor who can talk about the similar values that you're trying to um, portray in your application. You want them to write something that complements, goes along with your story, if that makes sense. And then there's the obvious things like demonstrate interest. What most students do if they're going to demonstrate interest is just maybe go to the admissions page and sign up, click the button that says sign up for more information and they'll get the emails. If you do, I mean, obviously do the minimal stuff, but like if you get an email, click it, read it, visit, follow them on social media, like, post, and that's the easy stuff. The thing I tell my students and I mentor them about is saying network. I want that admissions person, whoever the regional admissions person is, when they see that college application for the first time, maybe they're downloading it in October or November or December, whenever. I don't want that to be the first time that admissions person saw that name. I want my students to have had organic conversations with their regional admissions person at least 3 to 4 times. Now, you got to be careful with that. You don't want it to be like asking them questions that are easily answered from the website. That means they're gonna go, you're not looking at the website. And you don't want to make it obvious that you're like, hey, please like me, please like me. Now I want you to admit me. That's not going to work either. But find genuine conversations, start genuine conversations, have an authentic inquiry, if you will, with the admissions person. You want them to start to build some rapport with you. And those are these little things that we talked more in detail in the last webinar, but what we're going to cover next is just again kind of the timing of what I try to do with my kids and help them build all of this together. So with that, let's just we'll go kind of quick through the earlier years because most of you I think are rising seniors, but let's just talk what I like to do with my rising ninth graders. Those are going in, starting in high school. Basic things for the students: get to know who your high school counselor is, and then take the time to map out what would be a 4-year course progress so that you can graduate in 4 years. Look at what the school requires. The things I'm going to highlight will be: make sure you incorporate into that plan at some point in those 4 years is to take biology, take chemistry, physics, and calculus if the school offers calculus. Take those classes. If you can take APs, that'd be great because we would love to demonstrate academic rigor or an honors if they don't offer AP. But you want to make sure you have those 4 core classes. Even if you're not going to go into, let's say, a STEM, you could be going into communications like my wife. But a lot of these selective colleges are going to still want to see you took those 4 classes. Okay. So that's important to build into your plan. I even like to have my kids take a PSAT, like the 8 or 9, at this age, and that's just kind of to gauge where are they with their overall academic knowledge, and are they? I'm trying to gauge, are they ready to maybe take an AP test? I'm sorry, AP class. Okay, get them, look into the available clubs. If they've not ever participated in a club, let's see what's out there. The high school probably has more opportunities to get involved. Let's go see, try something, right? And this is a good time to learn time management. They're going to have more homework, they're going to have to balance more activities, and so this is a good time to start learning time management. And the final thing I like to do is mentor them is about creating a vision board. Like, get an idea for the year. Like, what do you want to accomplish? What do you want to, see done? And make a vision board. It just helps reinforce what their goals are and what they're trying to accomplish. And especially on the days when they're, maybe having a bad week or something like that, or a bad test, the vision board, just something to visually remind them, like, what is their goals. So that's what I always have my rising, ninth graders do. Parents, parents, I'm going to kind of give you the similar advice every year. Figure out what is your affordable college budget. Start it even as early as ninth grade. Figure out what that affordable college budget is. Then let's see what those potential schools. Maybe those just the schools in your areas, those colleges in your area, or some of the whatever you got kind of got on your radar. Plug them in and let's just see what they're going to cost. Is it going to fit your budget? And for financial aid strategies, if we're going to try to qualify for more financial aid, maybe you start this, as early as then, and start gifting any appreciated assets that are affecting your financial aid eligibility. I'm going to say talk to your CPA, especially if you're a business owner. Talk to your CPA about any tax strategies that are available to help maybe reduce the cost of college. And of course, I'm going to say nothing beats hiring a pro. You know, um, we will save you more money than you would ever spend, but nothing beats hiring a pro. But that's real quick what I'm going to tell like my incoming freshmen to do. Right, this is what they should be thinking about over the summer. Let's go to the rising sophomores. Basic things for the student. I'm going to say, now you have 3 years left in high school, so refine that 3-year course plan. Again, making sure we're going to have biology and chemistry and physics and calculus. Are we going to get that in? Take a PSAT test. Again, sometimes it's just to go, am I ready for AP classes? Some high schools you can take APs in 9th and 10th grade. Some high schools, they say not to 11th, but whatever it is. The other thing I want to say about AP classes, I have met a lot of students who maybe didn't come to me until like they're already in their junior year and they haven't yet taken maybe like one AP or maybe two AP classes. And they're like, oh, I'm taking 6 in my senior year. I'm like, that's terrible. Like, why do that to yourself? You should have taken as many APs as you could in 10th or 11th grade. Don't bury yourself in senior year. Besides, when you fill out your applications, you won't have AP test scores yet if you save it all for your senior year. So try to front load them, take them earlier than you thought. So this is the time to really be thinking about again the timing of your classes and what can you demonstrate rigor with. Um, Summertime, volunteer or intern, or I say create a job opportunity that provides value. I mean, for me as a kid, this was my neighbors, my buddies and I, we created a lawn mowing business, like I think most kids in the Midwest would do. Created a lawn mowing business and we mowed lawns all summer long. It made money, and we set it up then for the winter time. Again, we grew up in the upper Midwest. We made it a snow removal business. Like, what can you do? Like, show some initiative, do something, don't, yeah, I played video games too, but like, try to do something beyond, the ordinary, if you will. I like to have my rising sophomores do what I call a values assessment of kind of figure out what's important to them. What are again, just like trying to get a better sense of who they are. I want them to do some reflection, some journaling, which is not the same as writing a diary. I will never write a diary, but it is healthy to journal. And I want them again to just really get a deeper sense of who they are, and because that's going to help them when it comes to building their personal brand. And then if you can, if it's convenient, start visiting colleges. If you're maybe going on a summer vacation, is there a college nearby, a university nearby? Just do a visit. Um, I'm not saying I don't necessarily like it when my kids fall in love with the college that early, but I want them to see like what are the things they like about a certain school and what are the things they don't like about it. Like write down what the experiences were, what was it you liked and what you didn't like. Again, for parents, it's all financials. Reevaluate your college budget. Reevaluate the schools are going to cost. Make any strategic adjustments. This is probably I'd say your last year of being of your best opportunities to be proactive with any strategy. Okay, this is the last great year to be like I still have like 10 out of 10 strategies, if you will, at this stage. So be looking out for that. And again, if you haven't hired a pro, I'd be like hire a pro. Okay, let's go on to the rising juniors. Redefine your 2-year course plan. Right, again, take the AP classes if they're offered. Prepare to take that SAT or ACT. Like I have my rising juniors studying right now for the whichever I had to do a diagnostic to see which one they did better on, but have them take the SAT or the ACT. I wouldn't generally ever recommend both. And something I do is I'm a certified aptitudes counselor. I have my kids do an advanced aptitude assessment to see how does their brain work? How is their brain wired? How do they learn? How do they think? That is so impactful for them to provide such clarity on who they are and kind of that direction of what they might want to do and going, oh, like these things I think I'm interested in. Turns out that should just be a hobby. These other things I'm interested in, oh, this would be actually a career that I would be successful at. So want them to pursue that. Again, summertime, volunteer or internship, create a job opportunity. You'll see I crossed out passion project. Out of curiosity, hands up or thumbs up or something. How many have heard that term passion project? That's like a buzzword, I feel like the last few years. Okay, yeah. Um, I hate passion projects. Passion projects are mostly fluff and mostly, um, from what I've seen, are done by someone other than the student. And the friends I have who work in admissions all over the country are like, oh my God, please, we hate passion projects. We see right through them. What I have my students focus on is what I'm going to call a purpose project. I know it's a play on words, but there is a subtle yet important difference, a significant difference between a passion project and a purpose project. And that really comes down to when the student knows their values, knows how their brain's wired, they can speak so much more significantly and meaningfully about what they want to do and why they want to do it. They have a better sense of self. And I don't like my kids, I don't do anything for them other than help them brainstorm ideas. And I'm like, look, we know what high schoolers are typically capable of. And yes, nowadays technology helps significantly from when it was when I was doing this in the 90s. But we still know what is typically like the high school students, performance, if you will. And so, like, when they're coming out and saying, like, oh, I did this, this, and this, and, I cured cancer. I'm like, no, you didn't. Like, you hired someone. So do something more meaningful, if you will. Uh, what I think gets overplayed a lot is like, a lot of counselors will tell people like, got to have leadership, experience, leadership, leadership, leadership. I think that's overplayed, to be honest. It's to the point where it's watered down. So many like clubs in high school, the you can be the leader of that club, but most of that stuff is now just kind of a leader in name, and it's more maybe just administrative. They're not really doing anything. And so what I have my students look to do is look for opportunities to make an impact, to make it and take initiative, right? That's more important than leadership. um, and then by certainly by now, my rising juniors, I'm having them starting to build up a college list. We're building up a college list based upon that academic fit and some of their personal I wants. We're building up that college list, right? And again, update the vision board every year. Update the vision board. Now, parents, do all the stuff I've been talking about. College budget, again, update it. Update your projections. Maybe you got a salary increase. Maybe you lost a job. Whatever it is, update those projections and your budget. Um, with that updated info, as I said, the student is building up a college list. You're going to start narrowing it down to make sure it still fits your budget, right? And I'm going to say, if you don't have a college planner yet, this is time is no longer your friend. You're starting to run out of time. We still have things we can do, but you're getting critical. Like higher, if you're thinking remotely, like, oh, my situation might be complex, don't think about it. Hire a college planner. I'll share an example. A family that just hired me last month. They've been following College A Pro for the last 3-4 years, and they've watched our webinars. They felt like they had a basic understanding of it, but they were like, "Oh, this our situation is pretty complex," and they convinced themselves, though, even though we preach all the time, like, don't assume you won't get financial aid. They assume they won't get financial aid, and so they just waited to the end, and then they hired me to help. And I told them, I was like, when I looked at their situation, I was like, guys, if you would have came to me freshman or sophomore year, I could have helped you qualify for a ton of financial aid. But because you waited, now instead of having 10 strategies, now I only have like 4. And I don't have the 6 that could have meaningfully helped you. And then they're like, oh my gosh, you weren't kidding. We should have, started sooner. I'm like, yes, time is that one thing. I don't care how much money you have or how much money you don't have. If you start early, time is your best asset. If you wait too long, it's going to be your greatest liability. All right, rising seniors. Okay, so this is where I think most people are. Obviously, again, refine that final year course plan. Make sure you graduate. Take the AP classes if you can. Volunteer, and again, intern. Create that job opportunity. Whatever is available to you, right? Do what's available to you. Either take that last year's purpose project and expand on it, build it up, or maybe you refine it. Maybe do something else. Maybe you discovered a new direction. That's fine. Just keep pursuing that. Intellectual curiosity is so important. Um, Again, those impact roles. Finalize the college list. Like all my rising seniors, their college list is done. Like they know exactly what we're applying. And what I have them doing right now is finalizing their personal statement. So most of my seniors, rising seniors by now have done 2 revisions of their personal statement with me. And my goal is to have their personal statement finalized by the end of this month. I'm being a bit hopeful, probably be mid-July, but anyway, I tell them, the end of this month, because in July, I'm going to have my juniors start prepping, not finalizing, but prepping for the supplemental essays. For those who don't know, if you're applying, not talking about UCs or Cal States, but a lot of the other schools throughout the country, if you're using a Common App, a lot of schools have supplemental essays. And I will say the the supplemental essays typically fall under 3 themes. One will be why us, like why this school, right? So you want to be able to talk about that. Or they ask, why this major? So you want to be able to, again, why are we going to study this? And then the third, more newer theme, if you will, is about your community. Like define your community. What have you learned from your community? What have you contributed to your community, right? And so those are the 3, I'd say, the most popular themes to supplemental essays. So I want them to start drafting ideas for that. I don't want them to get too far on it because admittedly on August 1, if you log into your Common App, on August 1, that's when colleges can change what their supplemental essays officially are. Not that they change often, but just because they could, I like to say, just I want my kids to have an idea of how they're gonna respond to those essays. And then August 1, when we see what the official ones are, boom, now we can finalize the supplemental essays. But I'm gonna say, honestly, you wanna finish as much of the college application over this summer because students underestimate how busy their senior year is. It's nonstop busy. It'll be their busiest year. And the stress of just trying to get through your senior year plus doing college applications. You don't want to be doing college applications at the last minute. I've had too many students where they came to me like at this time of year, started working, and then they're like, oh, I'm going to apply out of these schools. And then as we got through the year, the schools start falling off their list. Like, oh, I don't have time. I can't handle the stress. I love that school, but I can't handle the stress of getting that application out. I got to do my midterms, or I got to do my finals, or what. My teachers are really tough. So try to get as much of this done during the summer as possible. This is my best advice for you. And then parents, this is same basic story here. Update your financial budget. Reevaluate what the schools are going to cost. Any last minute strategic moves you can do to qualify. If you're going to help with your child's application, don't overproduce it, is the way I'm going to describe it. We can tell when parents write essays. We can tell when you know, parents write very differently than what high schools do. High school students will. So don't overproduce it because admissions will smell that a mile away. But yeah, that's the basic thing I'm going to tell you is really focus on this. Um, and if you do these things, kind of like at these basic check marks, obviously you're doing this a lot of work during the school year, but these are kind of like my benchmarks for summer. If you do all of these things, you're going to put together that defensive strategy and that offensive strategy to help improve your chances ultimately of winning that admissions decision and hopefully even scoring some scholarships from the schools if assuming they offer it. But anyway, that's the quick rundown of what I suggest you all should be working on. Again, depending on what year you're at, these little benchmarks should significantly help you. With that, I'm going to turn it over to my illustrious Kevin Murphy.
Well, thank you very much. I can say we're definitely gonna go over time tonight. we're definitely gonna be like 10 or 15 minutes over. So everyone just sit tight, and we're gonna give you the ins and outs of financial aid now. So first thing I'm gonna do is I am gonna switch the slide, but I'm also going to put in the chat a link to create a free MyCap account. And just in a second, I'm gonna go in there and show everyone what to be looking for. So let me stop sharing here and start sharing here. All right. So once you go in and you go to mycap.collegeaidpro.com, you're first going to be prompted to put a bunch of information in, right? And most of it is, generic information like student name, parent name, location, so zip code, graduation year, sibling graduation years, parent information, marital status, tax information. We ask all of this because it allows us to then project out what colleges are going to cost. So although it seems like we're asking for a bunch of details, it's all necessary for us to be able to tell you what colleges are going to cost. Now, as soon as you do that, it's going to generate a number called your student aid index. Now, my colleague, Jason, will be going over student aid index in a minute, but this determines how much financial aid you're eligible for. And I think college planning is stressful enough. I want to keep this as simple as possible. And that's what our goal is. So you can see here, we've got all of the schools this particular student's interested in, and we have the projected net cost for each school. And I'm just going to quickly click on American. And you can see all the details that are in here about American. Someone actually had asked in the, I think it was in the Q&A or the chat, like, where can I go look? How do I navigate a college's website to find all this important information out? A lot of times you can pull that information from MyCap, right? Like average GPA, average test scores. What application do they use? Do they use the Common App? So we're also at CAP, we're not super big on rankings, but I know a lot of families care about rankings. So we do include, Forbes, US News, Money, just so you can see how the school is ranking. Now, with American University, you can see here that, we're projecting out a cost of attendance. We've got the full breakdown for you. And in addition to that, right, we're showing this projected net price up here. And we're using a lot of the information here, right, need-based aid profile and merit-based aid profile to come up with those numbers. And we're not going to go dive into each scholarship for American, but you can see here there's quite a bit of scholarships. We list out every scholarship that we're aware a college offers right within MyCap, so you can go in and find it. And we're saying that this student's likely to get $11,000 based on their GPA and test scores. Now, from an affordability perspective, this family's budget's $25,000 a year. So right away, we're looking at this and we're saying, hey, caution, watch out. American's going to be way more expensive than $25,000 a year. And total loans are expected to be above the first year salary, which is a very quick and easy indicator of, are you borrowing too much or are you not? We try and focus on ROI. We try and focus on affordability, all within the software, and make it very easy to understand. Now, this is our CAP projection, but at some point you'll actually have an award letter from the colleges. You can upload it. We'll even tell you if we think you have a chance to appeal. And then lastly, how to pay, right? So kind of what's the funding gap? What's the shortfall? And how are we going to come up with that? So let me go back to the home page. So a couple of things. So if you're going to go in right now and create a free MyCap account, you're going to be limited to 3 schools, and it's going to look a little bit different. And the reason why is because some of this is behind our club membership. So to get access to unlimited schools, to get access to our upcoming events, to get access to office hours, members only workshops where we go further in depth than what we're talking about on our big, presentations for everyone. All of that is something that you would have to, create an account. You'd have to pay $4.99 a month for it. So $4.99, as my colleague would say, is almost free. But so that is something that we just wanted to highlight for everyone. Now, I do want to drop in here just a quick landing page for everyone. So bear with me. Okay, and we'll talk more about this at the end, but if anyone wants to take a look now, you can. And before I pass this on over to my colleague Jason, I do want to share something. We are doing a parent scholarship contest. If you go online, every scholarship you see is going to be for students. But we are doing a $1,000, no essay, of course, parent scholarship giveaway. So I
Wait,
will
did you say we're doing $1,000 scholarship for parents?
for parents, and
Who's
I
ever
will.
done that?
We've never done this, but hold on. Insider
That's awesome.
information: we will not turn a student away. So if a student's watching tonight and you want to, enroll or enter, you absolutely can. But we are doing $1,000 parent scholarship. So put this in the chat for everyone as well. Alrighty. All right, so let me stop sharing this. Bear with me one sec. And let me start sharing presentation.
All right, friends. So
All right.
we've done some advice on admissions. Also now take a look at the MyCat platform. Last part of the presentation is about financial aid. So sort of top 10 list. JP says a big fan of top 10 lists. The top 10 challenges we see is number one, are you going to qualify for need-based aid or not? So parents have this question all the time. Are we going to get any aid or we make too much money? Second, is your kid going to get a merit scholarship? A lot of parents are like, oh yeah, my kid's got great grades. They're definitely going to get a scholarship, but you need to know whether or not the schools they're applying to actually give scholarships. Third challenge is finding affordable schools. And a lot of times that requires you to cast a wider net looking for schools you didn't know about or didn't think about or didn't consider. Fourth challenge, having multiple kids in college. We got enough saved for the first one, but my gosh, we got kid two, got kid three and four and so forth. So how do we allocate our resources? How do we pay for it? Make the most of the situation and, not just spend everything we have on the first kid and then be out of luck for the others. Big challenges for divorced or separated families. How do you navigate that? How do you find, which financial aid forms, who files? What if the other one's not going to help, et cetera, et cetera? That's a big challenge. Six, making costly mistakes on the financial aid forms. As we'll talk about briefly here, there's two different application forms, in some cases others, but the FAFSA, every school is going to require the FAFSA. In addition, some other schools are going to require this form called the CSS profile. And man, the CSS profile, it is very easy to make mistakes on that. They're going to cost you to lose out on aid. So that's a huge challenge we see. Number seven is how do we appeal? Because when you file the financial aid application forms, basically they're going to ask how much money do you make and how much money do you have. But for most families, you got all these other circumstances going on in your life that these forms don't ask about. You got aging parents or whatever, special circumstances. The business did great one year and now the business is closed or whatever. And so you need to appeal to get more aid. How do we do that? Then once the kid decides where they're going, you got the 4-year cost. What's the game plan? How do we tackle this? We got so much in 529. Maybe we can pay so much out of pocket. How much loan should we take out? Who should take out the loans and so forth? Number 9, staying on track, missing deadlines. This is a big one. Scholarship deadlines, uh, financial aid application form deadlines, and so forth. If you miss deadlines, that could cost you thousands and thousands of dollars. Okay, so staying on track is difficult because a lot of times we'll have different deadlines. And the last one, of course, student loans. If most families are using student loans these days, and the question is, what's the right ones to take out? How do we manage the payments and so forth? So these are the big financial challenges families are facing. So we'll try to give you some help on these top 10. All right, next slide, Murph. All right, so let's high level. What is financial aid? Well, it's a little bit, the term financial aid is a little bit confusing, so we're going to provide some clarity. It's a discount to the sticker price. We call it the sticker price. So a lot of schools play this game where they'll have an advertised cost of attendance. That's all in tuition, but also all the other stuff like your dorm and your food and your books and your technology fees and so forth. All in is your cost of attendance. So a lot of schools will have a high sticker price, but then give you financial aid to discount it. So that's the trick. That's the tough part as a parent. Like, how do we know how much these schools are actually going to cost? Right. And so what counts as financial aid, there's different types of financial aid, and you need to know as a parent which are the good kinds of financial aid and which is the not so good kind of financial aid, even though it's all called financial aid. Well, the good kinds are grants and scholarships, okay? Because that's free money that's awarded to you that you don't have to pay back. So it drives the cost down. Okay. So grants, that's free money based on your financial profile. Okay, so your income and your assets, how much you make, how much you own, and so forth. So if you see grant in a financial aid offer, that's free money. You don't have to pay back. Drives the cost of attendance down, and it's based on your financial profile. Scholarships is free money, drives the cost of a college down, but it's based on your kid's talent profile, whether that's grades or test scores or the ability to throw a football or whatever. And that's independent of your financial need. Okay. And then the third type of financial aid is called self-help aid. By the way, grants and scholarships in the jargon is called gift aid because it's gift money. But self-help aid, there's two kinds. There's work study. Okay, so schools can offer you get work study. That's basically a job. They're like, yeah, you can get a job at the library, or the cafeteria, whatever. The money's not going to go towards tuition or whatever, but the kid's going to get a paycheck every couple of weeks, but they got to work for it. So it doesn't bring the cost of college down. And then, of course, loans is the other kind of self-help aid. And loans, of course, it's not free money. Not only do you have to pay it back, but you got to pay it back with interest in most cases, which means it increases the cost of college. And JP talked about formulating a budget. One of the most important things I recommend parents is factor in the interest to any loans that you take in because you will be surprised at how much loan interest increases the total cost of college over time. Okay. But you just need to know the best kind of financial aid is grants and scholarships. So that your strategy should be find schools and use strategies and find schools are going to give you the most grants and merit-based scholarships so you can get the cost down as much as possible and therefore minimize the amount of loans that you have to take out. All right, next slide, Murph. Okay, so let's talk about grants. Okay, this is in the jargon need-based financial aid. So you got to ask yourself, are we going to be eligible for any need-based aid, i.e. any grants? Well, there's a formula. It's just math. They take the cost of attendance, again, that's the sticker price all in, and then they look at this minus this number called a student aid index in the jargon. There's a lot of jargon in financial aid. It used to be called the expected family contribution, by the way. So if you have older kids and you were familiar with EFC, that's just been changed to SAI, but it's the same thing. But basically, and we're going to show you this here in a second, when you file the FAFSA, when you file a CSS profile, they're going to ask a bunch of questions. So how much do you make? How much you got in the bank? How much your house worth? All this kind of stuff. And based on what you put on there, it generates this number that's assigned to your family called a student aid index. And that's ballpark kind of what schools use to determine how much aid you qualify for, need-based aid. Okay, now it doesn't mean they have to give you grants to cover that aid. That's the second part of this. But that's how they determine your need. Okay, so cost of attendance minus SAI is your need. That's the amount of need-based aid your family is potentially eligible to receive. So let's say the cost of attendance is 90 grand, your SAI is 50 grand, you got $40,000 of need. Okay, you got to know that first of all. And then second of all, you got to know if the school is going to meet your need with grants or they're going to meet your need with loans. That is a huge part of this analysis. And again, if you don't understand this or you're confused by it, having a planner guide you through this is super helpful. Because if your SAI is 50 and a school doesn't meets the $40,000 of need with loans, you're actually still paying $90,000. Okay, even though they've given you $40,000 of financial aid. Okay. All right, so that's how need-based financial aid is determined, the eligibility. Next slide, Murph. And so you need to know, of course, how is your SAI calculated? Basically, they're going to ask, what do you own outside of your retirement accounts? Those are your assets. It's everything but your retirement assets. So if you have any money in retirement, they don't count that, 401k, IRAs, et cetera. Um, and then they'll look at how much assets are owned by the student and how much assets are owned by the parents. Those are assessed differently. So this is something you need to know as well because there's a planning opportunity. Anything owned by a parent is assessed at a lower rate. 5.6% roughly for parents, 20% for kids. So for example, if you got 100 grand sitting in an account and the parent owns it, they think 5,600 bucks of that can be used for college each year. But if that account is as the kid is the owner, they think $20,000 of that. So you're going to lose out on financial aid if any account is in the kid's name versus the parent's name. Now, grandparent owned accounts like 529 plans are not assessed at all. So there is again a planning opportunity. Any grandparent owned 529 money does not hit your SAI at all. Sibling 529 not included in the analysis for the kid in question. Now, if your kid has a trust, like a UGMA or UTMA, the kid is the owner of that account, and therefore it will be assessed at 20%, not 5.6. So there's also potentially a planning opportunity if your kid's young enough to where maybe you can reallocate the money in a trust into some other kind of vehicle. But they talk to your CPA. We are not CPAs. Talk to your financial planner. We are not investment advisors because there are implications of that, but there's potentially an opportunity to move things around. If it's a parent-owned 529, again, it'll be assessed at the parent rate, so 529. The kid is the beneficiary, not the owner. That's a big mistake we see parents make on the forms. And another mistake, if it's a jointly owned account, the kid's got a bank account and your name is on it, the kid, whatever, that's actually your money, not the kid's money from a financial aid perspective. Now,
Can I,
real estate, yeah, go ahead.
sorry, I was just gonna say, in case, I want parents to really hear you on this slide. I think a lot of people, like, 'cause there's a lot of info, and admittedly, sometimes even me will gloss over with numbers and whatnot. But um, for parents, listen very carefully. Jason's dropping a bunch of huge strategies on you here,
Yeah,
and so I just want to make sure you were really paying a close attention here. This is where this page, understanding what you see on this page and what he's explained to you, is what can save you potentially tens of thousands of dollars off the cost of college. And
yeah.
so it's obviously you need to know how to implement it, but pay attention to this, okay?
This is exactly. Thank you, JP. The thing is, college is already expensive enough, but parents make so many mistakes without even realizing they're making mistakes that that cause them to just lose out on tons of financial aid. So that's why working with the pro is so helpful. We're like CPAs for financial aid. CPAs know all the tax codes and so forth. You need to know how all this works to get your numbers down as much as possible. So real estate. The primary equity in the equity in your primary residence where you live is not counted at FAFSA only schools, but it is counted at CSS profile schools. But not every CSS profile school counts it the same. So again, it's so complicated. You really need to know, like, the schools on your list. How are they going to look at our home equity or not, et cetera. And it's the value of your assets the day you file the forms. Okay, so if you file your FAFSA and your CSS profile on October 15th, whatever's sitting in the bank there, that's what you're supposed to report. So there's a joke, planning opportunity, pay all your expensive bills October 14th if you're filing on the 15th, kind of thing. Okay, now that's the asset side. On the income, this is pretty straightforward. They just pull your tax return information from the prior year. Okay, this is why on the financial aid side, people always ask us, when should we get started with college planning? It's like freshman year, because if you can get your AGI down before the 10th grade year, you can then qualify for more aid as the kids going into college later. I know it's crazy the way that works, but that's how it works. So if your kid's going to college in 26, they're going to look at your income tax returns from 2024. Okay. And primarily what they use is adjusted gross income. So here again is why planning opportunities are so important. Here is like, if you can drive your AGI down, you can qualify for more need-based aid potentially. Okay. And so that's the biggest driver is the AGI. Student income, that's the parent income. Student income, they will ask you about student income. But for most kids, there's an income allowance of almost $10,000. So if the kid makes up to that, um, then it's okay. It's not going to hit your SAI. If a kid makes more than likely, you're a business owner and your kid, you've employed the kid in the business, make sure you stay under that, because that's assessed at 50%. 50% of what the kid makes drives your SAI up. So again, this is all complicated. We don't expect you to, really grasp the details to this, but want to give you a sense of the complexity, but how it's done. And again, can't stress this enough. Working with the pro will help you save you some money. All right, next slide, Murph. What if you don't qualify for need-based aid? What if you're a millionaire or whatever? That doesn't mean you can't get any financial aid. You just need to have a different strategy, knowing you're not going to get a need-based aid from any schools. But you can focus on merit aid, the other kind. So we just talked about grants. You can focus on scholarships. But the thing is, not every school gives scholarships. That's the first thing you got to know. Will your kid be eligible at scholarships at the schools on your list? Okay. And if you're high income, you still probably should file the FAFSA and the CSS profile, because even a lot of merit scholarships require it. So a lot of families are like, it's a waste of my time. We're not going to get a need-based aid. They don't file the FAFSA or the CSS profile. Their kid could have gotten a scholarship, but because they didn't file the form, they left money on the table. So file the FAFSA and CSS profile, full stop. Okay, because your kid could get a scholarship and you don't want to miss out on that just because you didn't file the form. Now, merit scholarships, school by school basis, some are way more generous than others. But one of the biggest mistakes I see is parents don't understand that some of the most selective, fanciest colleges in the United States give zero academic scholarships, merit scholarships. I don't know how many times I've talked to parents who are like, my kid has a perfect SAT, perfect ACT score. They're definitely going to get a big scholarship from Yale or Harvard or Dartmouth or Stanford. And then they get their financial aid package and it's $98,000 a year. They're like, what happened? My kid had a perfect ACT. They should have gotten a full ride scholarship. I'm like, sorry, man. Those schools you applied to don't give merit scholarships. Okay. So you need to know of the schools on your list, do they give scholarships or not? And will my kid qualify for those scholarships? Okay. And if you are going to chase merit, as it's known, one strategy is go to apply to a competing colleges. So, example, I went to the College of Worcester as an undergrad, smaller large college in Ohio. Their competitors are like Denison University or Kenyon or Oberlin or whatever. So, if your kid's interested in Worcester, which they should be because it's the best college in the United States, they should probably also apply to Denison and Kenyon and Oberlin, try to get a big scholarship from one of those other schools. Then you can go back to Worcester and say, hey, Denison gave us a better scholarship. Can you match it kind of thing? So there's
I'm
some
just gonna let
strategies.
that comment slide about Worcester being the best college. Just FYI.
He's not
We're,
biased at all. He's
That's
not
just
biased at all.
science. That's just science.
well,
Trust the
your
science.
science is wrong.
So anyway, if you are a super high income family, this is the take home message from this slide. That doesn't mean you can't get any financial aid. That just means if you're not going to get need based aid, you can still look for colleges that give merit aid. You just need to know which ones do and which don't, whether or not your kid's going to qualify for some. All right, next slide. So, as I said earlier, every school is going to require the FAFSA for financial aid. That stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid. It goes live October 1st, fingers crossed. And at the FAFSA, you got to create an account at studentaid.gov. Your student's going to need an account. The parent contributor is going to need an account. The FAFSA, if you fill it out right, it's going to automatically pull in your tax returns from the prior year. And in cases of divorce, it's the custodial parent who submits the form. Okay. And there's a little gray area there, and that gets very confusing. If you are in a divorce situation or a co parenting situation or separation, we highly recommend booking a free consult with us because it can get really tricky. And if you make mistakes, you can lose out on potentially on lots of aid. But it's generally the parent who provides the most financial support. That doesn't mean the one who makes the highest income or who pays child support. It's much more complicated than that. But if you're applying to FAFSA only schools, the FAFSA in divorce separated situation, only the custodial parent who provides the most financial support has to submit a FAFSA contributing form. Okay. So there's a login procedure there. Sorry, to create your FSA ID. If you're parents of 26, go do that now. Don't wait till the last minute. Go ahead and create your FSA ID now. Then the next form is called the CSS profile. There's about 250 colleges or so that require it in addition to the FAFSA. It's not either or. So if it's a school that requires the CSS profile, it's both. Like the FAFSA, it goes live 10/1. Big difference in CSS profile schools. They will treat the home equity in your house as a liquid asset. And in the other big difference is in divorce and separated families, the non-custodial parent's going to have to file as well. You can get a waiver in some cases, but it's often very difficult. There's got to be court paperwork and so forth. Again, if you're in that kind of situation, book a consult with us so we can kind of go through the details with you. But for FAFSA schools, only one parent has to file, but in CSS profiles, both parents have to file. Okay. Business owners, again, book a free consult with us because your case gets very complicated because they're going to ask things about your business valuation and all kinds of other things related to your business. And it's very easy to make mistakes on the CSS profile for your business owner. It could cost you to lose out on aid. Just a ton more questions. The CSS profile, I hope I don't offend anyway, but I've heard it described by a parent as a financial colonoscopy. So, all right, next slide. So how do you appeal to get the best possible package? Let's talk about that. So in the fall, you're going to file the FAFSA and the CSS profile, which is applications for financial aid. You're going to be asking for aid. Then in the spring, these schools are come back and they're going to give you financial aid offers. That's what they are. Those are offers. And some schools like to lowball you on the first offer, hoping you'll take the deal. but you can appeal to try to get better packages. And when you go, and so the appeals process is very important for a lot of families. If you have special circumstances or there's been a change in your job or income since the last time, since the prior year, if there's whatever, if there's more complexity, that's where you have the opportunity to tell this to schools. That's the appeal process. So you're going to want to tell your story. You know, my I've lost my job, the business closed. Now we took in an aging parent. We have ongoing medical bills. We had to have this huge surgery. You know, I live in Savannah, Georgia, so a hurricane came through and destroyed my house. And my insurance company won't pay, or whatever. Okay, so you're going to want to do the appeal, tell your story, ask for additional aid. In many cases, a very specific amount is a good strategy. In other cases, not. It's a little complex there, but you want to show the awards given by other colleges. You can say, look, you know, this is our top school, but this other school made us such a better deal. You know, we're going to have to go to that one unless you can sort of match it, so to speak. Now, you can't negotiate with colleges. This is an appeal for more aid. It's not a negotiation. Um, you could, there's lots of kinds of strategies for doing this appeal. Again, this is something where having a pro help uh, really gives you a better chance of succeeding because you got to know sort of the tricks of the trade. But you can challenge all kinds of expenses that you had that don't show up on your tax returns, et cetera. You want to be persistent. This is the thing parents often say, well, I don't want to bug them. They're going to pull my, you know, they're going to kick my kid out if I'm pestering them. But that's not going to happen. They're not going to pull your admissions offer. Or they're not going to, you know, do anything like that. And in fact, it demonstrates interest. And you want to do, of course, be professional, polite about it. But you can say, we really, 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 really want to go there, but we just can't afford it for all these reasons. That's demonstrating interest if you're persistent about it. Okay, so don't be afraid of that. It's great when the student leads the charge because, again, your student's going to be an adult. It's their college, it's their bill. And so the student leading the charge is a very powerful strategy because the student's like, hey, I really want to go here, but I just can't afford it. My family just can't afford it. Um, and you know, some parents are like, should we put an enrollment deposit down? It's like, well, um, if you don't, then you give yourself a little bit more leverage, all right, because you're not committing necessarily. But the other thing you could do, potentially put enrollment deposit down and then just forego the enrollment deposit if you end up getting a better financially package from the appeal anyway. So the appeals process is very important for lots of families because if you didn't get an offer that makes your school affordable on the front end, maybe you get some more aid on the back end to make it more affordable. And this year, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, Murph, was it something like the class of 2025 College Aid Pro has gotten over $4 million in additional aid, something like that, over 4 years for the class of 2025 through our appeals that we've done for families?
I'll admit I stopped updating the spreadsheet after around 4.5 million.
Yeah,
So I think at this point, I know we had one that just came through a few weeks ago for NYU that was like 60,000 a year. So I think at this point we're probably close to 5 million.
yeah,
But
imagine that. Getting an extra 60K a year, that's almost $250,000 that we save families by through successful appeals. So,
especially with a school like NYU, NYU guarantees the financial aid award for all 4 years. So that literally
yeah,
translated to a savings of $240,000. That's
yeah.
crazy.
So appeals are very, very, very important.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. So I want to go over a few things with everyone. Just bear with me for 1 second. So let me stop sharing this. Now, we mentioned, I think a few times throughout the chat that everyone can have a chance to meet with myself, with our lovely JP and Jason, to dive a little bit deeper into your circumstances. And one of the things that we promise every single family that we meet with, and I know it might sound like it's impossible in 15 minutes to tell you the exact way that your family should navigate this process, the exact type of money you should go after, whether it's need-based grants or merit-based scholarships, really like one-on-one tips. We're going to give everyone 15 minutes with us, and you can schedule that right here. Okay. And then in addition to that, you know, we do offer one-on-one guidance, right? We offer the ability to work with us throughout this process. We just talked about appeals. Earlier, JP talked about how having a college planner can help you navigate the admission side, right? And then we also offer both, right? Working with us for both parts of the process. So if you'd like to learn more too, book a meeting. And then lastly is essentially the DIY version, right? Like I went through the software, I showed how you can enter your information and you can see the net cost projections. You can enter your college budget in. and you can see if a school's affordable or not. You can look up SAT information. You can look up GPA averages. You can even search for colleges based on a lot of different criteria. So where do you get started? You get started with our premium membership, and you'll have access to literally everything we have to offer. The only thing that's not included is working with, directly with myself, Jason, or JP. But you literally get, exclusive presentations. You get unlimited colleges in the software. So tons and tons of value there. But those are the things that we want to go over. And then lastly was the $1,000 scholarship, right? So absolutely register for that. Parents, please. No one does that for parents. And there will be a recording here tomorrow. You'll be able to see everything that we shared with you tonight over and over and over again right here on the bottom of this page. So please bookmark this. Also, please review it. If you'd like to meet with us, we do ask that you book this right away, ideally within the next 24 hours, because our calendars fill up and we want to make sure everyone gets their 15 minutes with us. Do you guys have anything to add to this?
I'm just blown away. We're still doing $1,000 scholarship for parents. I've never
For
heard of this.
parents. For
That's insane.
parents.
I mean,
Literally, it's like put your name in there. You get the chance to win $1,000 for nothing. No essays. We do not make parents write essays for us.
And I don't, and again, I don't want you writing it for your child either on their personal statement.
Yep. Colleges know that right away, everyone. They can see right through that. But so someone just asked in terms of interpretation for other languages. I primarily speak English on our consultations, but please write into support. We do have a team member who speaks Spanish. We do our best to support every family, regardless of where you are in the world. I know I've got some clients in different countries, and I believe Jason and JP do as well. Okay, so let me stop sharing here. All right. So I think that kind of wraps up everything that we wanted to cover. You will get a recording tomorrow of the presentation. You will get that last chance to book a meeting with us and take us up $4.99 to join our club. Watch every other Thursday we do a members only presentation. I think we're doing one next week. So definitely take advantage of that. And thank you everyone for joining us tonight. Thank you, JP. Thank you, Jason. Is there anything you guys want to add?
Book a consultation, and it's so helpful. It's going to be so helpful for you.
Yeah.
This is a lot of
Yeah, I was going to say,
a lot of money. There's high stakes.
If you want to register for that scholarship or be entered, you have to do the consultation, I believe, right? Can you remind me of what the steps are, or remind everyone what it said? I think it was sign up for the premium, $4.99, $5 a month, whatever.
So
you get a consult.
Yep. So let me go over here. So for the scholarship, everyone should meet with us, because even that free meeting, we're literally going to tell you not only how much you qualify for, but what types of schools you should look at and how your family should navigate the process. But for the $1,000 scholarship, you just have to put your parent, first name, last name, email address. That's it, right? What best describes you in student graduation year. Very minimal. And then, yep, this 15-minute meeting, this is free. We charge $300 an hour, right? So 15 minutes with us, can do the math. It's very valuable. And then lastly, would be the DIY account for $4.99 a month. So those are kind of the steps that you want to take. I think really a starting point tonight, put your name in for the $1,000 scholarship and book a free meeting with us. We'll tell you, there's a lot of families who get on calls with us and we're like, the best path for you, $4.99 a month, stay in our software. There's some families, like if you own a business, if you're divorced, or let's just say your student's looking at colleges that meet full demonstrated need or give a lot of aid, or we know that on appeal we can save tens of thousands, if not more, then we might recommend additional support. And that's everything that we talk through on those calls. Admittedly, we typically go a few minutes over 15 minutes, so budget a few extra minutes. But let me stop sharing. All right. How did everyone like tonight's presentation? Good? Thumbs
Yeah, I
up?
hope it was helpful, especially if you were new. Like, I hope this was helpful. One thing I'll say for the DIYers, if you're a DIYer, I'm a DIYer at heart. When when my wife and I got married, like we remodeled our 1800s Victorian home. I discovered my wife's not a DIYer. But anyway, that was a rough first year. But anyway, the I will say if you're the DIYer, you do have an uphill battle. You have some challenges that you don't probably realize are going to be challenges because I, I'm sure many of you, like I am, members of like different Facebook groups that are dedicated to college or maybe financial aid. And I'll be honest, especially the ones about financial aid, that's probably where I see some of the worst advice, some of the most incorrect advice, well intended from parents. Um, there's I won't say which one, but there's one where the guy claims he's a master at understanding financial aid just because he downloads the formula and shares the formula. I'm like, and I've tried in the past to try to provide advice, and he'd be like, you don't know what you're talking about. You're just the snake oil salesman, and I'm like, no, I'm a director of financial aid, you fool. Like I know what I'm talking about. You don't. So, and we have other team members who are directors of financial aid as well, and we've all had the same experience with this guy who just he claims he's the master at financial aid and is like he gives terrible advice. So you have an uphill battle. You don't know what you don't know, and there's a ton of resources out there that are just wrong. You might you might think, oh, I can chat GPT this and come up with strategy financially. I put chat GPT to the test every day and it fails every day. It is not it will give you very terrible information, very inadequate, very vague. So you do have an uphill battle. And so if nothing else, if you're that DIYer at heart, again, you're my people. Schedule that 15-minute consult, and we're going to tell you like you're on point, or hey, just make this little this little adjustment maybe, or we're going to discover that like oh you have some big stuff you don't realize, and we could argue that I think it's safe to argue that we don't cost anything. And what I mean by that is we will save you more money than you'll ever pay for us. My average for class of 2025, my class of 2025 on average saved just shy of $31,000 off freshman year. Freshman year by itself, 120 plus $1,000 over 4 years. They paid peanuts compared to what I saved them. So if you just want to pay less for college, talk to a pro. That's what I'm going to say.
And start the conversation as JP, you were pointing out, like freshman year, sophomore year, like
Yeah,
don't delay that. Talk
yeah. The
about
family that
how
hired
much.
me that had been watching us for a few years,
Yeah.
I could have saved them so much more if they would have talked to me 3 years ago.
Yeah. The longer you delay, no one wants to have that conversation. No one wants to face how expensive college is and figure all that out. But the longer you delay it, the more money you're leaving on the table. And often it's a worse outcome, right? Like it's not as much planning, not as much strategy could be implemented. And you're gonna regret that if you wait until the last minute to start planning. We've had some really great questions in the Q&A. I mean, just incredible
Yeah.
questions.
And I put in the chat, if everyone saw, I put in the chat a link to what I call the college success checklist of like, hey, this is what I have my kids working on every year, like freshman year, sophomore year, junior year. It's just in a Google Drive. You should be able to, with the link, click on it and be able to download it. Like it's just, I'm just giving it out. I'm kind of handing you my playbook, if you will. I just made it like a checklist, but so check download that college success checklist, and obviously again I would tell everyone schedule a consult. Like all you're going to do is either tell you you're doing great, you're on track, or we're going to tell you, hey, this is how we can show you to save even more money.
I do want to just drop something in the chat. We've had a few questions about like what it's like to work with us bigger picture. So in the chat, I just put a breakdown of the packages we offer. Those can also be found on our website, but feel free to take a look for anyone who's interested. But okay.
And again, we're gonna email them a recording of the webinar, right?
Oh yeah.
And they'll have the landing page that'll re-highlight the scholarship and all that stuff. So especially if you're like listening to us on the car, like you'll get an email with everything. So
you will get, for anyone listening to us or anyone who had to leave the presentation, whatever it may be, join late, You will get a full recording tomorrow. You will get everything that I've shared in the chat tonight. And then everyone gets that chance to meet with us. Just make sure you book it soon. So I think that's it. I knew we were going to go over time tonight. I mean, 8:15. I feel like, well, 8:15 here on the East Coast, but I feel like we did pretty good.
It's my fault. I got too excited about admission stuff. Sorry.
Don't be sorry. It's perfect. I think we did great.
I'd rather give everyone more helpful info than not enough. So
For 15 minutes, it's like we'd rather give more information than not. So, all right. Any last words, anyone? All right. Everyone, thank you so much. Thank you for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it. Whether you get a paid account, a free account, go create your free MyCap account and schedule time to meet with us. All right, everyone, have a great night.
good night,
Okay.
everybody.
Bye.